Hello, hello, and welcome back to Soulful Speaking. I'm super excited about my guest today, Kelly Schuknecht. Kelly is a marketing strategist, thought leadership coach, and the founder of 2 Mile High Marketing. She helps entrepreneurs, authors, and CEOs amplify their voices, clarify their message, and build influence through strategic visibility. Welcome, Kelly.
Thanks, Lauri. I'm also super excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. As our guests know, I love to dive straight into our first question. Where and how did your speaking journey begin?
So I went to the digital summit I'm going to the beginning of like where it started in my mind and my soul. I was at the digital summit in Seattle with my team. I had a marketing team and we were all there, and I sat through these presentations from other speakers, and I kept feeling like I could have taught that. I could have taught that one. Not every one of them, but several of them. I kept having that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time where I thought, oh, I think I've hit a point in my career where I'm now the teacher and I need to start positioning myself as that. And so from there, I mean, that was like maybe 3 years ago. And from there, I started thinking about it, applying to speak, kind of forcing myself out of my comfort zone and into that speaker position. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so it took me a little while. It's been now about a year and a half since my very first speaking event. So maybe about a year after that kind of seed was planted in my brain.
Yeah. And it feels like to me that was the whisper of your own thought leadership. Correct me if I'm wrong, but back then you were still working for someone else.
Yep.
And yet it was like the whisper was something even more that has evolved now.
Yeah. So it was at that time I was an employee in a company and I had built my marketing team. And it was probably around that same time, or maybe a few months later, I read the book Personality Isn't Permanent. Have you heard of that book, Lauri?
From you.
Have I mentioned
So
it before?
yeah, and I don't remember that much, and I know our listeners are probably crazy curious. So tell
Yeah.
us about that book.
Yeah. So that book, I think at the time I didn't realize how life changing it was, but now I look back and I realize how life changing that book was for me. I read that book. It's by Benjamin Hardy. And I, as I was reading it, he talks a lot about trauma and
Mm.
how trauma affects us and holds us back in ways. And the whole book I was reading, I kept going, I don't really have trauma. Like, I don't, like nothing has happened to me that I feel like I would call trauma that is holding me back, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that kept sticking out to me was that I have a huge fear of public speaking, and not just like getting out on stage and speaking. It's like I could be in a room of 10 people and I am horrified to be the one that people are looking at, right? Like I hate talking in a room full of people, whether it's, like I said, 5 or 10 people, or I mean, getting on stage was like not even an option. That was just not something I would ever have done. And I think maybe I had that seed planted in my head that like, I think you're supposed to start teaching as part of your career path. And then I read that book, and what stood out to me was that's what was holding me back. I
Mm.
didn't associate that as like trauma at the time. Although I've had other people say to me certain things that have made me realize that there probably is some sort of trauma that is just not like a PTSD kind of thing. It just, it doesn't have to be this major trauma, but something in my life that was like holding me back from wanting people to look at me and wanting to be in the spotlight. And, go for it.
How did you connect the dots? Because I feel like I have a parallel in my own life of being in a lot of rooms where people were talking about what now I would say is like the capital T trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we all have little t, like every single person on the planet has at least one kind of little t trauma. How did you connect the dots?
Uh, well, I mean, I guess for me, it was pretty obvious just that that fear was debilitating. Like, it was like, I could not do it. I actually, I tell this story, people don't believe me, but I actually selected my courses in college based on which ones did not require you to get in front of people. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is how, I mean, literally, like I wouldn't take a class if I knew I had to get in front of people. I still had to in some classes because it was just part of the curriculum, but I would avoid it at all costs. And so I think for me, I mean, that was obvious, right? I had a therapist on my podcast who we were having this conversation talking about trauma, big T, little T trauma, and she said something that made me realize that it probably was just kind of my childhood, like wanting to be. And I hate saying this because, like, I have great parents, I have a great family. Like, there's nothing like, nothing trauma, big T trauma in that situation, but more of just like, I grew up in a family where it was like you didn't want to stand out, you didn't want to be looked at, you didn't want to, whether it's like I think what she called it was like that generational trauma of, my dad's upbringing and how that impacted like how he raised us. And, so I think that was just part of it. So I think it was really like the connecting the dots was just through having conversations and realizing that there was more going on there than just like, I don't want to be on stage, or I don't want people looking at me. It was like, there was something really deeply ingrained in my brain and my psyche that was really preventing me from doing that.
Yeah. And do you remember anything sort of deepening that, or being aware of anything in like junior high school
Oh
and
gosh.
high school?
Well, just the fear itself. So my mom says to me all the time, because now I have, and I know we'll get into this at some point, but like I've started a business helping people get on stages. And so as
Mm-hmm.
part of that, I told myself I have to be the one also leading by example, and I have to be doing what I'm helping people do, right, in their careers. So my mom is all the time like, do you remember when you were in middle school and you hyperventilated when you had to give a talk? I'm like, yes, mom, I remember. Like, she just is blown away that this is what I'm doing as part of my career, because she has this memory of me being so fearful in middle school. And the same thing in high school. It's like I avoided, I absolutely would not sign up for debate class. I absolutely would not sign up for anything that if I had to be in front of people. So it's like, yeah, I remember all the way back to about sixth grade in Mrs. Bauer's English class. Yeah.
From hyperventilating to thought leadership.
Yes.
And now the AI is going to pull that out as the title of the episode. So when you were an adult and you gave your first one after having that whisper of, hey, I think I'm meant to teach, how did that very first one go?
Depends on who you ask. So my first talk was at a conference for accounting marketers, and that was actually my job at the time. I was a marketing director in an accounting firm. It was a great fit for me to go and speak on that topic. I was speaking about omni-channel marketing strategies. And there was probably about 50 people in the room. So not super intimidating to normal people, maybe, but it was pretty intimidating to me. And one thing I learned was don't add unnecessary tech into a presentation when it's your first time, because the tech didn't work, and that caused additional anxiety for me, getting on stage. And, here I had these engaging polls I was planning on doing throughout my talk, and then that didn't work. And so then I had to kind of improvise, which turned out fine. But so afterwards, I did not feel amazing about it, but somebody said to me, gosh, you're just a natural on the stage.
Hmm.
And I was like, huh? Uh, really, I didn't feel that way at all. And, now I look back and I can see that like, it's not as visible to other people what's going on internally.
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely seen that. I've experienced that with myself. Everything from how much sensation is going on when you're speaking. And to me, the vast majority of the world is telling us that all of that is wrong and that it's the fighting of it that can lead to things like hyperventilating or other other things that are not conducive to channeling our energy.
Yeah.
And that's not what's coming across. And a very similar sort of thing, like people have said to me, "Oh, Lauri is so patient." And I was mentoring someone and she was like, had one of those moments where something happened when I was directing a play with a group of people and somebody's like goofing off. And I said something and she was like, "See, you're so patient." And I said, "That's not how it feels on the inside. Just
Yeah.
so you know, like I'm taking what's happening out there and like on the inside, I'm feeling all the stuff of like, how dare you? We're behind. And just channeling it into where I would rather go, what I want to create instead, which is reading to you like I'm incredibly patient. But if you ask my husband, he knows the truth is I'm not always patient."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was what the other thing is. I think that, so I had one of my team members in the room when I spoke. And so I asked her, how do you, how do you feel it went? And she told me some of the things that it's like, I could tell you were breathing fast, you were talking fast. She was giving me the real, like, she knew me. So she knew some of those signs that I was nervous. But you know, and I don't know, I don't know how much of that is like she just knew me and somebody else wouldn't tell me some of those things, or if it really wasn't noticeable. But the reality is I had to do that. I had to get through that first one
Mm-hmm.
and the next several until I started just getting more and more comfortable. And I knew that that would be the case, that I would eventually get more comfortable. But every time I've been on stage, I've had people tell me like that I'm just a natural. And it's crazy to me how much you can fool people.
Mm. Fool people. And you did have that whisper of I'm
Yeah.
meant to teach.
Yep.
So natural, not natural, possibly it doesn't mean what you thought it means to do it before you actually started teaching and being your own thought leader.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's where I am now in my journey is reconciling. Like I do think I am meant to do what I'm doing. I'm meant to get on stages. I'm meant to speak and teach. I've had, 20 years of experience in my career. I have a lot to be able to share with people. And I know that I'm helping people every time I get on stage. And so all
Mm.
of those things, it's like I know that's the right path for me and where I should be. And also I still have that like just be quiet and don't make waves and don't draw attention to yourself. Like I still have that internal struggle that I have to continually work through. It's like those two things don't make sense at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling called more in the direction of speaking and teaching and doing that, right? So I'm trying to figure out how to speak to the other side of my brain and say, stop it. Hush that away.
Yeah. How do you reconcile those two parts when you apply, when you're about to walk out on stage?
I think it's becoming easier for me over time. So each time I do it. So last week, I was asked for the first time to come and speak specifically to a group. So it's not a thing that I went and applied for. I was pursued and asked to come speak to this group of women, and I was beyond excited to go and do it. And I think just from doing it several times now, like I'm getting over in my head that like you're not that imposter syndrome, like right, of like you're not the person that people are looking to get these answers from. Like, I because now I'm doing it regularly. This is a funny story too, Lauri. After I spoke, I was standing there and two women were walking towards me and I went to get out of their way. And then I stopped and looked at them and they said, "Can we take a picture with you?" And I was like, oh, they were coming to me, not that I was in their way and I needed to move for them. They were coming to me because they wanted to take a picture with the person who had just spoken and taught them something.
Mm.
And that, like, I'm still working through that. It's just a weird feeling because I've never, as a mid 40s woman, I've never been the person in the spotlight. And it's really a different feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Embracing that you are now the one that people want to take their picture with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What have been some other key moments along the way from that first one to now people want to take their picture with you?
So I told you the first event that I did. The second one was a good, it's about 50 people again, good practice round for me. You were actually somebody that helped me in kind of just getting my messaging down for that event. The third one, it was one I applied for, and I just had in my head it would be a small room of 50 people again, like that's just I was getting used to that. I walked into the room in the morning. They had a speaker check in the morning, and I walked in and I quickly counted the chairs, and there were 1,000 chairs in the room. And I could have crawled under my hotel bed and not come out.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that the room would not be full. I knew that it would not be 1,000 people, but that was extremely intimidating. And when I gave my talk, I would estimate there was around 300 people, maybe 250 to 300, something like that. It was also a huge stage where there were lights on me and I could not even see the people in the audience. I couldn't really engage with people. I did a little bit. I asked some questions and I tried to get some people to talk back because that makes me feel more comfortable. But I realize now, after doing several more events, that was the best thing I could have experienced, because while it was the scariest thing I've ever done, it also, now I walk into a room of 50 people and I'm like, just 50 people. Like, it's just like, it totally puts
Mm-hmm.
things into perspective where I have less fear of things that would have just totally intimidated me before, because now that seems like no big deal compared to what I've done.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." Joseph Campbell. That may be not exactly the right words. It reminds me of that. Like, you saw a cave of somewhere between 250 to 1,000 people, and instead of going, "Nope, never mind, I'm sick, can't do it," you entered the cave and realized there's treasure there. You are meant to do this.
Yes, yes. And yeah, now I look back and I'm like, that really, I will be intimidated again if I have a stage with that size again. But just having done it and forced yourself to, in my case, I've just forced myself to do things that were uncomfortable, and they were still uncomfortable in the moment. But like, as soon as you're done, it's kind of like running a marathon, which I did a couple of years ago, right? It's like you're building up this whole time. And for that moment, you get done with that moment and you look back. I told myself as I was running, I'm never doing this again. This is a terrible idea. Remember in this moment how much you hate this. And literally 2 weeks later, I was like planning out the next marathon, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I feel about getting on these stages is, you prepare, you do all this work, there's so much anxiety around the moment, but you get done and you're like, wow, I just did that. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm, every time so proud of myself for having done it, for, just facing that fear. And then I've also noticed that So that big one that I talked about, that big stage that I was on, I came back from that event and I was immediately invited to speak at another event, an online summit. But I know that they had looked at the speakers from that other event. So doing it then leads to more opportunities that keep opening up for me because I'm now being seen as the speaker and the person who's on stage, and I have that experience that people are seeing.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you what kind of things it is opening up in your business and your life.
Yeah. So I think before we started recording, I mentioned to you, I think I've spoken at some sort of event or another almost every week for the last 6 weeks or so. And some
Mhm.
of them have been me traveling to an event. Some of them have been online summits. But it just seems like this door has been open. So every time I've gone out and done something, it then leads to another one, and now we're going into holiday season, so I imagine things will slow down a little bit, but I'm kind of anxious to see what this next year will look like because I think it will just continue.
Yeah.
So that's been amazing, especially because that's also what I do for my clients, is helping them get speaking events. So then, seeing how that's worked for me, I know that, that they're going to have that same um, those same opportunities open up for them once we get them an event that fits their target audience. It will open more doors for them as well.
Yeah. What is your why for all of this?
Good question. I think so. For one, like I mentioned earlier, because I started this business doing what I'm doing, I feel like I have to be going out and speaking for a couple of reasons, right? So one is the speaking leads to potential new clients for my business. So when I go out and I'm teaching about how to develop your personal brand or how to develop your thought leadership platform, I end up getting leads from that. People want to talk to me, see how I can help them. So I mean that's the obvious one, but the other one for me, just going out and speaking, is it is practicing what I preach. It is doing the thing that I'm helping other people do. Do I have to do that in order to get clients? Not necessarily, but I feel like it's kind of my own personal brand that I'm developing around my business and how I'm best able to help people. I think I've worked on my personal brand for years and years, and I think like it's finally kind of like the door has been opened where I'm like, oh, this is why I have been doing this, right? So the why has not really been clear to me for the last 15 years as I've worked on it until till now. And now it's become very, very clear that this was why I was having those whispers and those calls deep down to do things that I didn't even understand why at the time.
Hmm. And what do you love about your business? What's important to you about it, and what do you love about it?
So a couple of things. One, when I first started my business last year, one of the first things that somebody said to me was, you don't want to like start an agency. You don't want to hire people because then you have to worry about keeping the business coming in, and you have to worry about laying people off at some point or whatever. And I remember that moment when somebody said that to me. I was like, no, I do want to build a team. I don't want to be doing this myself, right? Like I'd never set out to be a solopreneur and be working, even though I enjoy working in a room by myself. I work remotely, so I like quiet time working. I still don't want to be doing this by myself. So for me, a big part of what I love is building a team, developing a team that's working, for the best interest of our clients, training them around, how to serve our clients, and then also the the biggest thing for us is when we get those wins for our clients. It's so much fun. It's so exciting to see that result for our clients. We had one client that came on over the summer, and he has a very, very specific niche. And I was like, I don't know how hard this is going to be to get him events in this niche. I worried that was going to be really challenging. And probably about 3 weeks ago. Within the same week, we got him 3 speaking events. And I realized that because he's so like in this niche that's so specific, there's actually fewer people who can speak to that audience. And it
Mhm.
actually opened up more opportunities than I was expecting. So that kind of thing, I mean, it's just, that's really fun and exciting. And we love being able to do that for our clients and then seeing them get the results that they're wanting in their business.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like there are probably a lot of people listening to this, myself included. I don't know if I'm as far over as he is, but it feels like that sometimes. It feels like we're looking for a needle in the middle of the world's biggest haystack if you're just kind of plodding along yourself, Googling. So I love hearing and really receiving the truth of the fact that if you are a unicorn looking for a specific needle in a haystack, there are not actually as many people looking for that particular needle as I am or as he was.
Yep.
The other thing that I love about what you just shared is going back to the beginning of like the part of you who didn't want anybody looking at you ever, including in a room, then has someone tell you, you don't want to have, just be a solopreneur. It's easier, big air quotes in case you're listening and not looking, because then you don't need to have a team. You could have gone, okay, because I don't really like people looking at me, so I don't want to lead a team. Because whether you're on Zoom or you're in the room with your team, you've got some people looking at you if you're leading a team to run your company versus being a complete solopreneur who doesn't even have like a VA helping them.
Yeah. I have always built teams. That's what I've always done. So in my little team, my team of 5 to 10 people, I've never been intimidated to talk or felt uncomfortable in those scenarios. I've always liked working with people and I've liked having people be able to help me with things. And, so to me, that was, I don't know. I just didn't even, I was like, that's not even an option for me to just be the only person providing services for the clients. And I know there's a lot of solopreneurs out there who that's fine. And that's what they want to do. And I don't have anything against it. I just knew that like, I am not meant to be just by myself. And then the wonderful thing about having a team is like, we just celebrated our 1 year anniversary last week and they put together this celebratory video and they, there was just, there's just, I love being a part of a team and just having, that we're all in it together and celebrating our wins together. And so to me, yeah, it was like, it was those things that people told me that I absolutely had to do or absolutely shouldn't do, or, that whatever, those kinds of things that really steered me towards what was right for me. Because if I knew when I was having a reaction inside and an internal reaction to the things they were saying, that I was like, I'm not listening to that. I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it my way. And that's the beauty of having your own company. You get to do it your way.
Yeah. And it's a vital ingredient of being a thought leader. And I have a feeling that when you were watching other people on stage, thinking to yourself, I could have given that presentation, that there was probably a little something, at least in every single one, where you would have done it differently, or you felt like they were missing a vital piece in their presentation. Or in theater, improv in particular, there's the yes and. Yes to everything you said, and here's the next step. And now you're getting on stages and doing that, and you're running a company that does that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I remember one of the talks that somebody gave. In fact, you're reminding me of kind of that, what had happened there. One of the women that had spoken at that event where I had that feeling of I should be doing this, she came off the stage and she was telling me about how, this content engine that she had created from podcasts, and she was talking about all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, we do all of that. Like it was, I realized how much I had, how much I had developed this team. Like we knew what we were doing. And actually that is what informed my first talk that I gave a few months later on omni-channel marketing strategies. Cause I turned it into, here's how to take your content and repurpose it for all of these different platforms. And so it was taking that one kind of thing that she was trying to teach me how to do, which I already knew how to do, and then turning it into my own version of a talk, teaching that my version of that strategy.
Yeah. Beautiful. What are the biggest things you wish you knew when you started, or that you would want like your clients and or listeners to know about stepping into their thought leadership?
Well, for me, it was just that I always worked for someone else for 20 years in my career. And I just always thought like that's the person that's the visionary, that's the person that has the ideas, that knows what to do, right? And when I stepped out on my own, I realized how much vision I have and how much, how capable I am of making the decisions, structuring the team, deciding on the strategy. I mean, all of those things that I had been a part of in my companies, but not in charge of, and or not the final say in. Like I realized that I had so much more ability than what I was allowing myself to believe about myself. And so that's the thing that now I am, when I go out and talk, I mean, one of the things you teach is like having this intention, setting the intention for what you want people to get out of it. And for me, it's always inspiration. I want people to be inspired by my story, by my journey. I want to help them pull out of themselves those things that they are capable of doing that they don't give themselves credit for. They don't see themselves as that person. But if they are having that some sort of a calling to do something bigger or do something different, I want them to be inspired to start taking the steps to get there. It doesn't mean that you have to quit your job overnight and start public speaking, but for everyone that looks different. But if you're starting to have those thoughts, it's what are the actions you can start taking now to accomplish that goal so you don't look back later and regret it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I feel like you just put words to one of the reasons that I always want the episodes with guests to have a story component so that your story will speak to and inspire people out there who see themselves in you in some way. And then I trust them and hold space for them and hope that they will listen to their intuition just like you did. So you got led to speaking on physical stages. There may be thought leaders out there that are going to be like the next TikTok queen and always feeling someone or something comes at you with a should, or even just an idea. What about? And feeling your internal compass, whether it lives in your gut or your belly, and following that and trusting your own unique path.
Yes. Yes. Because, you mentioned TikTok. I mean, there's so many coaches on TikTok or people on TikTok who will tell you how to do things. And you could take somebody else's strategy and do the exact same thing as them and not have the same results as them, right? And some of that is because you're trying to take someone else's approach and make it your own. I've been seeing Gary Vee on my TikTok feed a lot. And I can't just start swearing and yelling at people in my videos. That's not going to be authentic to who I am and the way that I'm going to attract my target audience, right? So it works for him. That doesn't mean that's how I need to show up. And you have to show up authentically. And I think when you do that, that resonates with people. It's about finding the right people though, right? Like it's going to be a different audience than Gary Vee's audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Where, if listeners are feeling drawn to you and want to go deeper into conversation and possibly work with you, where can they find you?
Yes. So 2 Mile High Marketing is the name of my company. And if you go right on our website, there is a thought leader scorecard, which I think you've taken, Lauri. So Thought leader scorecard takes about 3 minutes. If somebody who is thinking about developing your personal brand or your thought leadership platform, it's worth taking because it will give you a score, tell you kind of where you stand as a thought leader, and it will give you some tips or some ideas on things that you could work on to help further develop that platform. So that is the best way to just it's really for you to learn more about yourself. And if you want to connect with me personally, LinkedIn is the best place. And Lauri can put the link in the show notes because I don't have an easy last name to spell.
I will absolutely put the link in the show notes, just giving a little people who are driving something to remember when they reach their destination to go type and search for. All right, let's go ahead and slide into our Pivo pivot. Do your best to answer with one word or a short phrase. First question, Kelly, what is your favorite word?
I'm going to say inspire.
What is your least favorite word?
Oh, does it have to be appropriate?
No, they do not.
That's okay. I have to think of something different. Least favorite word. Well, from this episode, I'm going to say should.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Quiet time.
What turns you off?
Chaos.
What is your favorite cuss word?
Oh, man. You're going to get me there one way or the other. I mean, I'm a fan of the F word.
What sound or noise do you love?
My white noise.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Buzzing at the airport.
What profession other than yours would be fun to try?
Acting.
And what profession would you not like to do?
Nurse.
And Kelly, what do you hope people say about you on your 100th birthday?
This is still supposed to be one word?
Or a short, no, just let it rip. Let it rip.
I hope that on my 100th birthday that they will say in some way that I impacted their life.
Well, you have absolutely impacted my life. Thank you so much for coming and being on the show and sharing your presence and your story and your wisdom.
Thank you, Lauri.
And I am doing my best to remember this season to say, if you loved this episode, if you learned something from this episode, share it with a friend, review it, rate it, follow it, all the things. And I'll see you back here next time.